All right, good evening, Vikings fans. This is Josh, Mike on the Vikes. It's been a while since you've heard from me officially. Part of the reason is I've been doing a lot more writing for Bite Size Sports, so make sure you check out those guys over there. We have a lot of good stuff coming out over there. A lot of good NBA coverage, a lot of good NFL coverage, a lot of good combat fighting or combat sports coverage as well. So make sure you're going over there and checking out the guys over at Bite Size Sports. You can find me on Twitter at JLime8, and we're trying something new here as we go into the 2024-2025 NFL season. I'm going to try to do a little bit more podcasting from home where I have some more space and where I have the ability to hopefully get a better quality product out there. But the general idea will be the same. You'll hear from me roughly every week regarding the current Vikings, game or transactions or just state of the team and things like that. So, welcome aboard. Appreciate anyone taking the time to listen. The obvious discussion tonight is regarding the draft and everything that I thought the Vikings did in the draft, which I was largely impressed with and happy about. And so I'll just touch on a few things, not going to be anything too over the top. And we're also trying this streaming thing because for me, this is a new territory. So bear with me if the quality is weird or if things change along the way. But anyway, thanks for being aboard. I really liked what the Vikings did in the draft. That's where I'll start. I don't like that we only have 3 picks on the book for next year. And I don't like how expensive some of the things were that we did. However, I think in terms of what we needed to do for this competitive rebuild, quote unquote competitive rebuild, to continue to stay competitive, we needed to get a quarterback. We needed to get one of the top 5 quarterbacks, I believe. And it basically, I would have been happy if we spent the farm just because we needed somebody. We actually got my 3rd best quarterback out of the top 5, which is J.J. McCarthy. I liked him a little bit better than Jaden Daniels after Drake May and Caleb Williams. And I know that might sound crazy because Jaden Daniels, he has the Heisman Trophy pedigree. He definitely came on late, high-level competition, did a lot of great things at LSU. And I really like him as a prospect, too. I think J.J. McCarthy's a little bit more raw, and I think that under the tutelage of Kevin O'Connell, I think he's a good fit here in Minnesota. And so I'm happy that we got J.J. McCarthy. He was my 3rd best quarterback off the board, and I'm also ecstatic that we did not have to give up next year's first round because I know we only have 3 picks next year. But thankfully, we still have our first round pick, and that's very important. So to walk out of the first round with a quarterback from the top 5 quarterback prospects, for me was extremely important and one of the best aspects of this draft. I know we moved up a pick to the Jets, and the Jets probably weren't going to take quarterback, but you never know who else was knocking on the door to move up to 10, and so I don't even have a problem with that. I'm not going to go into the trade details now. It's everything in the trade to move up. Every time you move up in the draft, you're going to most likely feel like you overpaid. So I'm not going to rag on that at all. We got J.J. McCarthy at pick 10, and I think that was really smart. I'm ecstatic that we didn't have to sell the farm to get up to 3 or 4. I'm happy we didn't go with Michael Penix. I like Michael Penix, the passer. My fear for him is that without a perfect offensive line, he's kind of a statue back there, and he'll sling it and he'll throw well. He'll have high accuracy. He'll put up big numbers, but I almost feel like that's a little bit too similar to what we had with Kirk, and I think we need to have somebody who's got a little bit more on the mobility side, which is why I like J.J. McCarthy, because I know he can, while he's raw and doesn't have a ton of film yet, he does have the ability to extend some plays, and I'm excited to see him in purple. He's got that competitive twitch, that makes him not want to give up on plays and always want to extend plays, and that can get you into trouble, but also can bail you out at times. And so I think that if he can balance that out, it'll be a good pick. And so I would have been content with that being our only first round selection, and yet we were able to trade up and get Dallas Turner at pick 17, another pick I absolutely love. I will say that it was an overpay to move up from 23 to 17, but when you think about the fact that you got a top 5 or top 10, maybe top 5 talent in a draft that isn't so quarterback heavy, I'm willing to pay that. We lose Danielle Hunter in the offseason. Now we have the highest, in my opinion, the highest upside edge player in the draft going into this season, and I love that. I, if I had to rank edge players coming out of this draft, Latu would have been my number one. He went before Turner at 15 to the Colts, but that's because he's more pro ready. I think his arsenal of pass rushing moves is a little bit more is a little bit more refined and ready for the NFL than Dallas Turner's. That being said, I think that Dallas Turner has a much better much higher ceiling, and I like the idea of combining forces between Dallas Turner and Brian Flores, who, by the way, compared him to a Dante Hightower, which is high marks, obviously. And not only that, but he said he's faster than Dante Hightower, and he's got a better pass rushing acumen as well. And so, if you're telling me we got a young version of Dante Hightower who also has a little bit more of the right tools from a pass rushing standpoint, I'm going to be ecstatic. So I love picking up Dallas Turner as well. I think that this team really did try to do what they needed to do in the draft, especially in the first round. And I think the future's bright still. And assuming McCarthy can do something, is mediocre at best, I think this team can still compete because our defense should be pretty good. If you look at the Sam Darnold signing, I also don't mind that as a plan B or as a temporary plan. If we signed Sam Darnold and that was going to be our only quarterback option going into next year, I'd be very upset. But if the coaching staff feels like McCarthy needs to sit a while, I'm more than happy to watch Sam Darnold give us, 4, 5, 6 weeks of quarterback play, see how it goes. Obviously up to the coaching staff at that point, but I think that's a pretty decent fallback plan, at least for now. And as long as they prove to the fan base that wasn't their top plan, their best option at quarterback, I think we can all get on board with Sam Darnold for a few games if need be. So from a first round standpoint, the Vikings draft was as good as it could have been given our position. I mean, the only thing better would have been somehow getting to 3 and getting Drake May, because I would have preferred him over Jaden Daniels, and so if we had somehow gotten Drake May, I'd be even more happy. But that would have come at even higher cost. So to me, I get the sense that Kwesi had a limit, and he wasn't gonna overpay to get Drake May. He wasn't going to lose that next year's first round pick, and so I think it all played out about as good as it could have gone for the Vikes, at least first round wise. Now, the whole draft itself didn't excite me, simply because we're just lacking in the pick department. And I say this every year now that I've started to try to watch some film on a lot more prospects, and each year I watch more and more prospects. And when you do that, even if you're not an expert, definitely not an expert, you tend to latch yourself on to players that you like based on your own eye test. And the fact that we didn't have any picks in the second and third round, it was really painful to see a lot of names go to other teams because the Vikings did not have a pick in those in that range. In round 4, getting Kyrie Jackson, the cornerback from Oregon, I like that pick. I think it was a smart pick, but it's less exciting when you've watched 2 full rounds of players that you thought were, players that you thought wouldn't have been available then getting drafted. And so it's hard to look past that a little bit. Then you have to try to remember, well, the reason we didn't have any picks there is because we've been stockpiling talent and have more high-end talent. And I think that, at the end of the day, I think Dallas Turner is worth taking a shot on a top 5-ish, top 10-ish prospect in Dallas Turner is probably a better plan than stockpiling day 3 picks and hoping one of them turns into somebody like a rotational player. Like it's not like having multiple picks necessarily in the second, third, fourth rounds necessarily means they're going to turn out. So obviously, you can't have it both ways, right? You can't have a ton of picks and be able to move up and get your guys. So we made our decision, and I'm content with it, even though we watched all those second and third round picks go. I think part of the reason I'm less concerned with that is our defense is in good shape, right? Brian Flores turned around this unit last year in a huge way, and even getting him a few pieces here and there alongside of what he established last year, I feel like our defense is going to be in perfectly fine shape. And so, I have no issues with that, especially when you consider who we brought in this offseason, right? Jonathan Grenard from Houston, along with Blake Cashman, another very good linebacker, Andrew Van Ginkel from Miami, Jerry Tillery even from the Raiders has some first-round draft capital from the past that, still might have something in the tank. And so I think the Vikings, my assumption also is that they were, focusing on the top-level talent and getting their quarterback. I think they were less concerned after the fact, knowing that they had a pretty productive offseason. I feel like I'm going to pull those guys up, actually, so I can take a look. But I think they can be happy with who they've brought in and feel like they've addressed things, even if it's not necessarily just with high-end talent from the draft. So again, I liked most of what we did early in the draft, obviously. Later on in the draft, missed out on some players just because we didn't have the picks. But I think it was justifiable because, you have to give something up to get it. And so I'm just taking a look here, see if I missed anybody. Re-signing Jonathan Bullard is a good play here. We got Shaq Griffin as a corner on a free agent deal. Like we did some things in the offseason or in free agency. It's not all those moves are gonna move the needle, obviously, but I think you have to be at least content with the value of all of it when it's all said and done, when you're looking at it holistically. See, other things about the draft, I didn't like that they took a kicker. I'll get that out of the way now. We signed a kicker in the offseason, John Parker Romo, and then we drafted Will Rickard from Alabama, and I'm sure he's one of the best kickers in the draft, and he could end up kicking for us for 10 years, and that would be awesome. My issue with it, though, is when you don't have picks, you don't spend them on a kicker. I just don't believe that's the right call. But it did feel like one of those years where a lot of teams were doing it. You see, it's kind of the old, well, if the other teams were doing it, maybe we should do it as well. And so maybe that's how the Vikings viewed it. Like they weren't going to get Will Rickard as an undrafted free agent, so maybe they had to spend a draft pick on him. And if they liked him that much, am I really going to argue with it? Not too much. It's just, it's kind of a bummer, right? When you see when so many positions need depth. We've suffered in Minnesota various times with lack of corner depth, lack of edge depth, lack of depth in the interior offensive line when guys go down. Like we've every team is desperate for depth, and you needs depth to be successful. And so to use one of your few picks, one of your valuable, even though it's a later round pick, they're still valuable for depth pieces. And to take a kicker, it doesn't feel right. But again, could be great. And we do need a kicker. Greg Joseph has gone on to Green Bay, where now we hate him. I'm just kidding. He's did some good things for us, but you know what I mean. You wish there would have been some other positions addressed. Speaking of positions addressed, the Vikings did take 2 offensive linemen in this year's draft, and that was smart. I had told a bunch of friends, I had told my some buddies on podcasts that we needed to walk out of this with a center. I'm a big Bradbury, guy for the most part, but he's very middle of the road to me. And I think that with the inconsistent guard play that we have, with the inconsistent guard play we give up way too much interior pressure. Part of the reason, when Kirk was pressured, it was a lot of times it was straight up the gut, and so you have to shore that up. Our running game was not good enough last year. And, we didn't have as many attempts either, so it wasn't like it was painfully inefficient. It was just one of those where I'm not sure the coaching staff felt we could run up the gut as well, or because I'm not going to blame Alexander Madison or Ty Chandler. I think both of them are good running backs. And so we needed to address offensive line. Now, we waited too long, so Michael Juergens, Levi Drake Rodriguez, not exactly the names you're looking for. But because I was so desperate to make sure we got a center, I did look at Michael Juergens a little bit more in depth, and he does look like a very capable and versatile player. If we run it back with Bradbury, then I expect Juergens to compete for at least for either guard spot, to be honest. And I think if he wins it, I think we'll feel pretty decent about it. And then at the end of the day as well, if we decide, Garrett, you just don't have it anymore, you're not quite to the level we need, then you have a guy that's got 3 years of starter experience, and a lot of that is as a center in the ACC. So you're feeling good about that. They're about the same size. I was hoping for someone a little bit bigger, but then again, you need someone who can move too. He was smooth on his pulls in the highlights that I saw. He's good with his hands. He's a finisher, which I really liked. There are a couple plays where I saw Juergens, latch onto a block, move the guy around, and still hold that block. So when the quarterback kind of moved back in that direction in the pocket, the block was still there for him, and I think that's important. And that was in pass pro. That doesn't even account for the fact that he also finishes blocks pretty well, second level as a run blocker as well. And so I like the Juergens pick. I like that we got an interior offensive lineman. I think we waited a little bit too long for one, but at least we didn't walk away with nothing there in regards to that position. So that pick I like as well. Along with our first round, I just feel like the Vikings had a good draft. They did what they needed to do. Value-wise, you could argue value-wise that we didn't quite get everything back that we gave up, and that's just the nature of trying to move up and being able to move up. So I'm assuming we'll forget about how expensive it was to get Dallas Turner when he has his first multi-sack game in week 3 and leading that B-flow defense as this generation's Dante Hightower. I'd love that. That'd be great. And it speaks to his versatility and his high ceiling, right? He's got the pass rushing ability on top of the fact that he'll be able to drop back in coverage. He'll be a useful kind of linebacker-esque player on the edge as well, not just a straight pin your ears back and rush the quarterback. So all good to report on that. Yeah, I think I feel very optimistic. I am optimistic all the time. If you know anything about me, if you've read any of my posts on MikeOnTheVikes.com or listened to some of my other podcasts from last season, you'll know that this is the realm of eternal delusion, where it's Super Bowl or bust every year. We're always we're always competing for a Super Bowl, and I've fully embraced the competitive rebuild idea, and so hopefully that comes to fruition for the Vikes here in 2024. But I look forward to seeing what the rest of the offseason has in store. I can't wait to see the first few highlights from training camp in a few weeks, or maybe a couple months, I should say, when we get to pretend that some throws that J.J. McCarthy makes in training camp are going to lead us to the Super Bowl as well. But that's neither here nor there. Stay tuned for more coming up. Like I said, you can expect me roughly every week, just taking a stab at my own little analysis and fan reaction to things going on in Viking land, and it'll carry on to the season where I'll get definitely some knee-jerk, but also some intelligent reaction to Vikes games every week and kind of go from there. So Mike on the Vikes, MikeOnTheVikes.com is the blog site. Not a lot there right now. I've been doing more writing for Bite Size Sports, so make sure you follow the people over there. And then you can find me on Twitter at JLime8. If you ever want to reach out and argue with me or debate or just, agree with a post or just sharing some Vikings commiseration, because we know that there's plenty of that every season as well. So until those moments happen, appreciate anyone who takes time to follow along, listen, and hang out. And have a great weekend. Happy Saturday. And we'll talk to you later, Purple Nation. Peace.